Before I get to the video, I just want to say please subscribe for more awesome videos like this. If you guys enjoy it, please subscribe. Now on to the video. Sometimes you watch a South Park episode and you think, this could be an interesting episode. But then you finish watching it and then you tell yourself, what the hell did I just watch? And that's what I call a worst episode. An episode that made you disappointed in a way that you really didn't feel like you were going to be disappointed. An episode that just makes you feel a ton of anger inside. And that's why we're going to crack down the top 5 worst South Park episodes. South Park, despite being the most popular animated sitcom of all time, has a lot of good episodes. But there is a few episodes that make you feel either angry or disappointed. Or both. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to list off the worst South Park episodes. Now before we get to it, let me go over the rules. I'm only including episodes that I have watched. Just because I'm a South Park fan, that doesn't mean I've watched every single episode. And last but certainly not least, this is my opinion. So if your favorite episode is on here, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Number 5, P. This episode is just gross. Despite the fact this episode is on this list, the episode started off alright, but everything went down the drain in the second half. Because the episode is overall pretty annoying and disgusting and really stupid. So the boys decide to go to a water park, which is a pretty good idea. And Cartman is basically worrying about how there is a bunch of minorities there. And yeah, I don't really understand it. But then the water turns into pee, and that's when everything goes south in this episode. While the boys are trapped in the water park, the first responders don't even do anything, and there's this scene where they're doing a test on a monkey, and I don't get it. And if you thought that scene was gross, wait until you hear what happens in the ending. Kyle was forced to drink pee, which is absolutely disgusting, and it is just pure Kyle torture. And here's a big question. What did Kyle do to deserve any of this? Absolutely nothing. Like, that scene is both gross and uncomfortable to watch. And I don't think it's even remotely funny. How is watching Kyle drink pee even close to being funny? Overall, P is a really stupid and gross episode. But don't worry, we are just getting started. Number 4, Up Down the Steroid. This episode is just the absolute worst, and it is terrible for Jimmy's character. So the episode starts off with Nathan giving Jimmy steroids, and because Jimmy is such an idiot, he decides to use the steroids. At the same time, Cartman wants to join the Special Olympics because he wants to make money. And you know how he makes it in? Why, he pretends to be mentally disabled. Now this is pure comedy. Cartman making fun of the mentally disabled is the funniest thing ever. Meanwhile, Jimmy decides to take a lot of steroids, and he goes too far by beating up his girlfriend and his mom. I know Jimmy is an overall great guy, but if he wasn't such an idiot, then none of this would have happened. And at the end of the day, Jimmy manages to win the whole thing, while Cartman Surprise, surprise. Well, he lost. All of them. And after Jimmy wins the whole thing, he now realizes that he messed up. So apparently, you didn't realize that you messed up after you brutally assaulted your girlfriend and your own mother, Jimmy? I feel like this episode completely ruined Jimmy's character. He's mainly a great guy, but in this episode, he was not the same Jimmy that we all knew and loved. Number 3, Scott Tenorman must die. This is the worst of Eric Cartman, and this episode made me absolutely hate his guts. Like, this episode made me despise him. And what's sickening to me is that despite Eric Cartman proved that he is the worst human being on the face of the planet, people somehow still like him. So the episode starts off with Cartman being a moron because he thinks pubes are currency, which is gross and kind of funny. And Kyle realizes that he's an idiot, and for the rest of the episode, Cartman tries to get it back. And that's not a bad idea, but the execution was terrible. So Scott embarrassed Cartman, and Cartman realizes that he's gone too far, and why he decides to do the most evil thing imaginable. He decides to have Scott's parents killed and grind up their body into meat and feed it to Scott. Why? Why would he basically do something like that? He could have literally done multiple things to get him back, but instead he decides to commit murder. Overall, Scott Tenorman Must Die is an awful episode. This would have been perfect for number 1, but I found 2 episodes that are way worse than this. Number 2, Butter's very own episode. Ah, yes. Butter's very own episode. The episode that still pisses me off more than any other episode that I've already listed. I don't even know where to begin. So, because of Steven keeping a secret from Linda, Butters told Linda about this, and you know what she decides to do about it? She becomes absolutely insane, and she decides to kill her own son, Butters, which really took a dark turn. And it turns out Steven and Linda decide to lie to everybody that someone kidnapped Butters. And it turns out Butters forgave them and they all live happily ever after, right? No! This episode is terrible. Terrible. Butter's very own episode could have been number 1, but there is something else that is way worse. Now, before we get to number 1, time for some dishonorable mentions. Chickenpox and Poor Kid are both mean-spirited episodes, but they're not bad enough to be on this list. Tally is a really boring and irritating episode. Largely it's because of Tally. Ginger Cow, Mexican Joker, Cartman Lands, and Tonsil Trouble are all Kyle torture episodes, and that's pretty much it. Jared Has AIDS has one unfunny joke, and that's pretty much it. Smuggler is a really stupid and annoying episode. And finally, Trapped in the Closet. It's all about a guy who won't come out of Stan's closet, and that's pretty much it. But anyways, on to number 1. And number 1 for the worst South Park episode that I hate with a passion is none other than Human Centipede. This episode is the worst. But first, let me go over some positives about this episode. Nothing. This episode is the worst, and I mean it. I don't even know where to begin. So the episode starts off with Cartman being absolutely annoying by pretending to play with an iPad and start ripping on others, which is just mean. And once when Craig exposes him, Cartman decides to beg Leanne to get him an iPad. And whenever Cartman doesn't get his way, he acts really annoying. Like all the time in this episode. And meanwhile, with Kyle, because he didn't read the I agree policies on the iPad, he gets kidnapped and oh my god. This is, oh my god. Oh my god. Like, just watching Kyle and Japanese guy and a woman being attached to one another is just uncomfortable for me. And this is just absolute Kyle torture. And it really pisses me off that Kyle is just nothing but a punching bag in these bad South Park episodes that I've already listed. Because why? Why would we want to watch Kyle being tortured for a majority of a South Park episode? Who wants to watch that? Who? I mean, this episode is completely unnecessary, really irritating, and really uncomfortable to watch. And don't get me started with these mother truckers, because these guys are literally in the episode for filler. At least Cartman got what he deserved, but that doesn't save this awful, awful episode. And overall, Human Centipede is a terrible and uncomfortable episode ever. And it is my vote for the worst South Park episode. And that's gonna do it for my top 5 worst South Park episodes. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.